I've honestly had some gripes with Spirit, and I think that Mirage being, for them, going downhill is actually kind of signaling their downfall. I don't want to say that they're not going to have like a resurgence and that their team is like going to fall off completely, but I think if you track Mirage as a map for Spirit, you can see it really started to become questionable just before the major. They lost at the major on Mirage to FaZe. I thought it honestly felt like a bad pick against FaZe. And now you have G2 pick it into them. And Mirage for Spirit felt like a map that they were very comfortable on. I'm not sure if they picked it all the time, but it felt like a map where they could consistently pick up wins versus almost every other top team. You know, you'd have a loss once in a while. But now it's like in the back of their map pool. Now they banned it against the Mongols. I think they banned it second round, if I remember correctly. G2 picked it against them in this series. And then they're having to fall back on like Nuke as their map pick, which they're good on, obviously. But it's like, it's not a guaranteed win by any means, you know? And I think that really is going to boil down what a lot of their issues are. And Mirage is a great example of where their issues lie. Because when you actually look at Spirit, they're the second lowest flash assist team in Tier 1. But they also seem to love to do a lot of the same things very regularly. And my guess is they give a lot of power to the players, that the players have plays they're comfortable with, and they're going to let them do that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'll give you an example. Zontix loves swinging off Cat a ridiculous amount. He just does it very, very consistently. But unless something's changed, because I didn't look at their last couple of Mirage games, they are the only team I see do that swing off of Cat that don't basically ever... I don't think they ever flash for their Cat player. Not that everyone like flashes for their Cat player every time other than Spirit, but other teams do... on occasion at least, flash for their Cat player, but Spirit they're like, yeah, Zontix just swings Cat all the time, and he kills everyone. I looked at the stats, gun versus gun round, over like 7 games, I couldn't find Zontix dying there a single time. It's like, he just does it and doesn't die. And so, I think when it comes down to that type of thing, and I've shown you the frequency in Palace, where, you know, Mao's kind of attacked them over that. I'm not saying that these are like, there's necessarily a huge problem with that, but I think that means they live and die by their individual players, and if their players aren't playing at this like insane, unbelievable level, then things are gonna kind of go awry, and maybe they'll need to, you know, work in some more utility or something. But I actually think that if Donk falls off, because this is another weak series from Donk, he's not pulling out series after series of insane games. I don't think he's gonna fall off. Like, when I say like if Donk falls off, it's like if Donk becomes just a Nico level player. If Donk is just as good as Nico, I actually think listen, I'm gonna get you guys are gonna hate this. I think we're going to look back at Donk in the first 6 months of 2024, the first half of 2024. If he falls off, we're going to look back at that as the single best period for any CS player ever. I said it. There, I said it. Hate me for it, go ahead. Better than 2018 Simple, better than Kenny S, better than m0NESY. We're going to look back at this as, how did anyone not realize what we had when we had it? And it's not that Simple wasn't impressive in 2018, okay? But here's and it's not that m0NESY's not great, okay? I know people already clicked off. I'm just talking to the people that didn't leave immediately after I said that. m0NESY is the second coming of Kenny S, of Prime Kenny S, okay? Donk is the first coming of a entry fragger that can be a top 10, even a top 10 rated player in the world. I think it's only happened like once ever, okay? And he's far and away the best rated player in the world as an entry fragger on a team that apparently doesn't use flashes all that effectively or all that often, okay? That is unbelievable. That's a whole new thing. It's a whole new thing, dude. It's a whole, like, I don't know. I think how easy Donk has made it look has like ruined everyone's brains as to how hard it actually is. This has never happened before, okay? Anyways, then you have a series where Zontix and Donk don't do very well, and G2 just aims them off the server. And there is a question of like, how much did Snax's calling impact this? How good was Snax's calling? Well, I think this is the round I'm thinking about. So you've got Malbs, he's gonna molly in window. A lot of the time, to be fair, you molly window and back up. Like that's common, G2 does that too. You molly window so that you can safely back up into underpass, or you can get into connector and you go for an A-split. So sometimes you might see that molly and want to go for information. However, that molly did land pretty deep. That isn't necessarily, I think, one that you might necessarily want to throw and back up off of. But Zontix just kind of walks in and Malbs kills him. And then you have, as a response to that, you have the double lurk through connector. And Donk loves this lurk through connector. On that right side where Chopper actually got the kill, they do the double lurk through connector to try and get the round back, but you actually have 4 players here from G2, right? So they're just not gonna let that go badly at all. And Donk, for whatever reason, swung through on the other side. So Chopper made first contact on the side that's like typically I think gets the kills, and then Donk comes through on the other side, and Monacy just takes him down immediately. And then you've got a 3v1, and Shiro's just gonna save. People are really gonna hate this review because I just said some controversial stuff and then some more controversial stuff and then some more controversial stuff that I'm not even like 1000% sure on. But you know, I say it how it is. Like Shiro, buddy, you're not allowed to miss that jump, man. You want to be a top 5 player, Shiro. You got to land the jump, dog. So when I'm looking at this round, they're kind of hoping that Monacy gets the kill on Magic's jump spotting, but he just didn't quite get the timing right. So Magic's caught Monacy, he jump spotted him just as Monacy was getting to the angle. Monacy didn't really have a chance to go for a shot, and that means that G2 have to kind of cancel plan and get out of there. Then they've got Snax at top mid. I mean, they're going to throw basically the same utility or similar utility in mid regularly. Smokes off the molly top mid, which is what you're expecting. And then they're going to go for an interesting play here towards B. I think they're trying to kind of figure out where Magix is and maybe take a duel. Maybe they're looking for Malbs to be able to duel against Magix here. Because right after throwing all of that, they cancel. And one of the nice things about this play is this does set up G2 to go for that type of play and actually end B. And it's not necessarily completely obvious later on. You know what I mean? They can go for this type of play, and it's not like telegraphed just because of, you know, that small amount of utility at that timing of the round. So I like that play as like a setup, not even just for this game, but for, you know, multiple games in the future. If you watch the, I think there's an IGL video where like Kerrigan, Alexi B, and Apex talk about IGLing. ESL just put it out, and I think it's pretty interesting, and it goes over that type of thing. Anyways, here, Zontix goes for a very similar peek, gets a kill. Donk peeks out as well, also gets a kill. Now he's kind of trapped in connector, can't get away, that's fine, but Zontix spams the smoke, gets the kill on Monacy as the trade, which is perfect. And that should basically be the round. You've got Malbs in a 1v3, and Malbs has been unbelievably effective for G2 so far, but I don't think he's going to be quite that effective. Although, insta-kill onto Zontix, the jump onto the box, which is great. The jump across doesn't quite land it. That's a bit aggressive, but, you know, you got to go for something in 1v2. You went for it, didn't work out. That's fine. 4-1. And then you do rotate into Shiro opping from CT. Now, if I remember correctly, I believe Spirit's a team that loves to play Chopper on a site, which means they do need to protect him sometimes by sending Shiro over here. And they love to play, of course, very aggressive in middle very often. And this just generally works quite well for them. And then Magix is just completely alone on B here, which is fine. And he's actually in a very good position, but he gets full blinded from the initial flash, just burns in the molly. And the key here that really secures this round is that Hunter is able to get this kill. Because Malves kind of clears things out. I think Hunter is not expecting Magix could be Van here. Peeks Cat. He gets the kill just before he dies. If he doesn't get that kill, then maybe Zontix off of Cat can like spin back and get a kill onto Malves, and maybe this round is playable. But once Hunter gets that kill, this round is basically over at the drop of a hat. And it definitely looks like G2 wanted to kind of attack the B site a decent amount. Partially because, like, if you look at the timing that G2 is hitting here, this is a timing where Zontix loves to be swinging off of Cat. Zontix, he loves to go for that Cat play, and lots of players are going for it, of course, but Zontix loves going for that Cat play, and you can do this in Pugs really effectively. Players swing Cat. You got to put a bit of pressure on mid, and usually if you ever like, hey, can you put some pressure on mid and tell me when they swing Cat? What happens is your mid player puts zero pressure on mid and they never swing Cat. That seems to be just about what generally happens, but you know, Zontix starts fighting off of Catwalk, and what you try and do with that is that you want to make him a little more scared, and you want to push him back where he's a little more worried about going for those, you know, swings off of Cat, which means their rotates are going to be a little slow, and their mid control is going to be a little weaker, and that just kind of sets you up to do things on the other side of the map. And in this case, they're expecting a response where Spirit might be hyper-aggressive back towards middle against them. Now, the thing is, there's a timer on this because when G2 is top middle, they're generally smoking off the top mid boxes, right? Not always, because that's why you have like these kind of delayed mid takes, especially where like the guy comes around the front of the smoke. But most of this game, it seems like I think the other 2 or 3 rounds that G2 have smoked it off. And so Spirit's going to get kind of an idea here relatively quickly that something is happening, but not quick enough as Malves is already making his way out ramp very early. And it's funny because this is basically, I don't know who came up with this. The first team I remember seeing run this is Spirit, but I don't know who came up with this, but this is basically the exact Spirit exec, and you're going to see why I say that. But Malves out a ramp, he is Donk-esque in his ability to get entry frags, you might even say. Doesn't force his way through the smoke. I think that's really great. Gets the initial kill. And then Nico swings across. And at the same time, you have, where is it? You have Hunter jumping through. So when Nico makes contact, Hunter off of that contact is already jumping through. And that little swing through, I think Shiro usually does that for Spirit. But regardless of who does it, it's very effective. And I don't think, oh, they do win this, because I'm guessing m0NESY just heard Magix jump up, and then it's a 1v1. Although Chopper got into a pretty good position. m0NESY doesn't know he's necessarily across, but he knows the timing was there. 1v1, the problem is Chopper has 40 health, right? And m0NESY, once he switches to the AK, he's got a pretty solid edge here in this 1v1, especially because he can make his way across and get behind Triple, which means this is just a long-range engagement that Chopper's never going to win, right? Maybe Chopper, you know, in that spot, Chopper, it's a left eye peek, so you want to stop him crossing to Triple, but can you even risk it? Maybe you just gamble that he's not going to make that cross and you can catch him. Didn't work out that time. Not that surprising. Then G2 are expecting likely just not a great buy, right? I mean, what are we seeing here from Spirit? They won with 2 players alive. They saved with 3 players alive. They lost. It's kind of wild that I'm low key surprised that Spirit can even afford a buy right now. So they go for like this 5-man swing out middle, which is crazy, but actually does make a lot of sense in the context of the way things have been going, especially because, you know, you're pressuring Zontix when Zontix wants to swing off of Cat to attack top mid. He might go for like a Cat jump instead, or you might have Shiro go for a Cat jump so that you can control mid, but not lose control of B in the same way. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. But in this case, it's just 2 insta-kills for G2. And it's as simple as that. I mean, these plays are... To some extent, you have to accept that I think that G2 kind of ran the right strat at the right time. And if Zontix just doesn't have that spawn, are they going for the Cat jump on that round? It's hard to say. They might always go for the Cat jump when Zontix has that spawn. And although it made sense contextually, it's just a play they generally make. And G2 just happened to run the mid play at the same time. It's definitely possible that does happen. But it did seem to make sense in general. Then you've got the rotate back over to B. It's obvious, I mean, G2 are really liking to attack B. And you might, if your Spirit, think that, well, they went 5 out middle. It is hard to go back to B after running 5 out middle. It's hard to go back to A too, to be fair. But they've been going B quite often, so you might expect them to kind of change it up at some point. And if you're G2 here, I think when you see the double rifle mid, I think you're expecting Shiro ticket most of the time. I'm trying to think of what setup you're expecting. You see the double rifle mid, Zontix jumped out, and Donk was in window. I'm sure Spirit has unique tendencies, but I feel like generally a good amount of the time you might have the Op or A. I mean, Shiro does like doubling A with Chopper quite often, so it would make sense, but if it wasn't the A player, I thought for a second Donk was the A player. If it's not the A player, then there's a variety of different setups, but I'm feeling like you've got the Op or A a lot of the time. But G2 are going to make their way back. The only thing that could be commented on is that Malbs is very far ahead of his team, which means Magic's, I mean, he has to find the timing for that to matter, right? Malbs isn't going to probably swing into apartments at that timing, right? He's not going to swing in. He's going to wait for his team, but he got close, and his team wasn't there yet, which gave the opening for Magic's. And then you have this kind of odd execute, I'd say, from G2, where they really are doing it it looks kind of similar to like that round 4, where they were a couple of players kind of like clearly lurking in there, throwing a bit of utility. Then they went back underpass, they went A. This looks, I think, very similar to that, but this time they're going to go back and actually end B. And it actually turns, I mean, I don't think Spirit really was going for this round. I think they were kind of just like, okay, well, if they go B, we're in a decent setup, and if they go A, then we're just whatever. I think that was kind of the idea they had before. I mean, 3v5, down 6-1, right? And G2 kind of moved into the site, but I mean, that's just kind of the gambles you take, and that's why you don't necessarily just run in like lunatics, right? You do those types of like utility plays to try and take down to try and isolate a solo player if you can. I really like the way Mongols, well, do I like it? Sometimes I like the way Mongols does these things, but regardless, they delay, then they wait, then they go back and actually end B. Shiro is in a decent position, but he needs Chopper to get the initial kill to draw pressure, basically. If Chopper gets the initial kill, then Chopper can hide. Shiro gets the kill on the guy coming out on the balcony, and then you have a potentially winnable round. But the thing is, like, look, CS is very tactical, and there's a lot of intricacies to CS to make it very interesting. But the reality is, you can be in a really good setup, and if the first player loses, it just gets domed instantly. You know what? You're gonna lose that round the majority of the time. Like, you can be in a good setup and still just get owned, you know? So G2, they went for, obviously, an aggressive play out ramp. I've seen them do that quite a decent amount. I've seen lots of teams go for that. You know, that's something, you know, Blame F will be the first guy out. In this case, it was Snacks. But we're going to zoom through this one pretty quickly, because I don't think this round is of particular interest. Nico just playing quite safe in Palace. And you need to have, like, lots of these. You got to be. There really needs to be careful when talking about, like, oh, well, they walked into a stack or they didn't walk into a stack or anything. A lot of the time, I think teams are just trying to be balanced in that, like, okay, well, we went A ramp early. We saw some players. We backed up. We went completely silent. We need to sometimes go back A, and we need to sometimes go B. Like, that quite simply put, you just need to sometimes do A and sometimes do B. And I think sometimes it's like, I think sometimes teams are just like, well, you know, it seems like a decent time to not go A this time, or it seems like a decent time to go back A this time, and it's like, what a read, what an outplay, oh my, and a lot of the time, yeah, sure, okay, there's mind games that go into it, yeah. I just feel like sometimes there's a little bit too much, like, every good play is, like, geniusly crafted, and every lost round is, like, geniusly crafted in the other direction, or it's a horrible misplay, and it's like, I don't know, man. Sometimes you're playing the percentages. So this is an example of a round. They don't smoke, I believe they don't smoke the top mid molly, because you can come around the front. Spirit also love doing that, by the way. But, I mean, you're expecting this. You're expecting the Zontix swing off of Cat. So I've seen Na'Vi do this before, and it seems to work very effectively. They had Alexi B. Was it Na'Vi? I think it was Na'Vi. They had Alexi B swing all the way around because the molly from Spirit doesn't land instantly. So they had a guy swing all the way around, okay, I don't think it was all the way around the back. I think it was like straight through here. Get to here. Zontix swings off, clears, starts looking top mid, and they peek out on him, and it was like, yes. That's clean. That's clean gameplay. But in this case, Snack's just peeking around the smoke. Is there a flash? No. I heard a flash pop. It was a T-flash. I was like, was there a flash? Look, you don't need a flash every time you're doing this. The comment is not that every other team flashes every time they swing Cat and Spirit don't. It's like other teams flash sometimes. It seems like. Unless I'm like misremembering. I'm pretty sure other teams flash sometimes. Yeah, he peeks out, and I mean, that's just a nice play, but let me just like slow this down. That's just like a solid shot, right? This is like, keep in mind, your Spirit have like the best player in the world, although apparently that's controversial. They've got Zontix and they've got Shiro. They've got like 3 unbelievably amazing players. Okay, let's look at this one. Body shot merchant strikes again. The body shot merchant strikes again. Now, what I did find interesting is that m0NESY has gone underpass with the op this round. And I think the point is that, I mean, Donk loves swinging underpass. And they do flash for Donk a decent amount of the time when they do that. But Donk loves swinging underpass from connector. They'll throw like this deep smoke. You can already see where it lands. And that leaves lots of space behind it. Donk will swing underpass. And a lot of teams run 2 players underpass because they want to counter that play. I mean, not just Donk runs this, obviously, right? But you've got m0NESY underpass, and he's kind of trying to catch the Donk swing. Not the Donk swing as in the movement technique, but the Donk underpass swing. And I was wondering, like, I was trying to think to myself, like, does it make sense is it better for Snacks to fight Zontix on Cat? Is that going to bait Donk into the swing? Or is that going to prevent Donk from going for the swing? Because if Snacks kills Zontix, then Donk surely isn't going to go for the swing. But if Snacks dies to Zontix, then is Donk more likely to go for the swing, or is he more likely to play passive? Well, in this case, he decides to play passive. And again, Magix is just completely on an island. You can kind of see, probably understand the idea of why G2 have been trying to attack the B site a decent amount. And Zontix looking for some info. He's looking for it. He's thinking about it, but I think he's a little scarred from the previous round where things went terribly, right? So he doesn't necessarily want to overforce it. And then you've got really nice timing here from G2. But if you look at this, I think Nico peeks up, and I think he just sees... I think he sees Shiro, and Shiro can't see him because he just isn't holding the exact right angle. Hold on. Sorry, I changed keyboards, and it's messing up. Yeah, so Nico can see Shiro. Shiro cannot see Nico. So this... You got to call this like a slight error in positioning, right? Well, maybe he just doesn't expect someone can be there, but yeah. I mean, Nico's going to get the kill on Shiro, and then now Donk, everything topples so quickly when you lose the first kill, right? Now Donk is worried about connector, so Hunter finds the timing to peek out, catches Donk in the back, and now Chopper's completely alone, and you know Chopper likes to play on towards site. I think Chopper might have even just mollied connector right after his teammates died. But you definitely know he likes to play towards site quite often. And when he does play site, I believe he generally almost always plays under balcony. The problem with this is that I've looked at a lot of rounds from both of these teams, but I've looked at a lot of rounds from a lot of teams on a lot of different maps. So now it's all jumbled together. So I gotta be like getting my notepads out before the game, because I probably said some shit and I'm like, yeah, they do that all the time. And it's like, no, they don't. And it's like, fuck, I knew it, but I'm trying to only say the things that I'm pretty confident on here, okay? All right. In any case, G2, some delayed mid util, but it's already, I think, kind of been figured out. They didn't throw the top mid molly, but you've got Donk out top mid. You've got the mid contest coming out from Spirit. The delayed smoke in the window. They're making it look like they're going for some control a little bit late. Snax is worried about this top mid contest. And I think G2, I think they're just trying to figure out exactly what Spirit wants to go for here. Snax re-clearing top mid. I mean, G2 could be going for basically anything. They have plenty of map control. Hunter's going to throw... I mean, this is a slightly different... I don't think they mollied balcony the previous times. They went for like this kind of like utility towards B, but they did toss a molly. They kind of tried to draw someone out of position and get a kill. But the problem is that this kind of, probably for Spirit, feels a little bit different. And so Magic goes for that jump spot. I think that's the jump spot they were trying to bait out. If you remember, on like round 3 or round 4, they were throwing a bunch of utility, but I believe m0NESY was still posting on the jump spot for quite a while. It might be that exact thing where Zontix pivots back, but this is a little later in the round, so who knows. But with that, then they've kind of got the information that G2 are not hitting B, which means an A hit around this time seems to make a lot of sense to me. And then you have the pivot quickly over into multiple players A. Off of the mid hold. Mobs makes his way out ramp quite aggressively. Quick kill on a Chopper, who was already low from earlier on in the round. And a nice flash partially blinds Shiro, which forces him out, gives Mobs a decent position to go for the frag. Gets a kill on Shiro. And the round breaks down just like that. And I mean, Spirit, they did a pretty solid job there, right? Pivoting back on that B hold, jump spotting, Magic spots that nobody's actually in B. And the timing of the A exec was not quite fast enough to actually beat that mid rotate into pretty solid positions on A. They couldn't get into the bomb site, but they did get a dunk, a nade that dunked right on top of a lot of G2 in the ramp because they were in jungle. So I think Spirit were in a relatively good situation there, but lost 2 players to Malb's entry instantly, right? And I think off the back of that, I don't think that Hunter spotted that jump spot B, but I feel like they might know that jump spot actually happened, that reaggress actually happened because of the rotate to A. Can you actually... It's hard to tell with radar. It kind of like subtly messes with you with your expectation of what teams know or they don't know. But man, dude, Malbs is so good, dude. It's unbelievable. Like, Malbs is so good, dude. It's like unbelievable. So yeah, I mean, Spirit don't have a ton of utility here. Zontix is going to have to be rotating back onto the site at the same time. They do have, I mean, they have Zontix and Magix rotating back into the site, and you have Shiro on bench. I mean, they're in pretty decent positions. You have some good utility come out from G2, but at the same time, you have Malbs just hits 2 insanely fast, quick headshots, and then Snax is like, oh yeah, I'll get alert kill too on the cat player. Why not? Because, I mean... If you guys remember like 2015 Envious, or it's like 2015, 2016 Envious, where it's like, yeah, we got 4 guys on one side and then Happy is just gonna lurk. And it's like, oh yeah, it turns out that actually works really effectively when your 4 guys just kill their whole team, or most of their team, and then they have to rotate and then you just shoot the rotator in the back. You know, that does seem to work quite effectively. But then obviously Spirit need Pistol Round if they want to have any chance at winning the game, right? Nice little nade from Hunter. Snax all instantly dead. And Spirit might actually have a chance. Hunter did have a good series. I want to give credit where credit's due, by the way, because I've been saying, like, I've mentioned that Hunter has just not been doing very well since CS2 came out. But since Malbs is on the roster, he's been doing pretty solid, and definitely this is like, I think he had an over 2.0 rating. It was like 2.07. I think his was like 2.14 and Nico's like 2.07. It was a pretty insanely good series from Hunter. Gotta give credit where credit's due. Hunter's doing really well since Malbs is on the roster, and maybe he's just a vibes player. Maybe Hunter's just a vibes guy. Vibes are good, he's chilling, he's happy, it's gonna go well, right? Or more likely, in my eyes, but you know, everything's possible, but more likely, I feel like, is that Malbs is just entering so effectively that he's creating an exceedingly large amount of space for his team, so that Hunter can kind of like be a little bit more of a passive player, and because the space is being made, he's able to activate a little more effectively. But in any case, m0NESY, yes, yep. Nico swings out with a flash. Both players are blind, and to be fair, I think maybe m0NESY's point there is he's supposed to like jiggle ramp so that he like forces those players to not be playing anti-flash, maybe. But I'm confident he's not supposed to die. I feel like that's not in the strat book. But a good flash from Malbs. Nico picks up 3. And although Chopper got 1 from Palace, I don't think Shiro's 1v4ing this one. And that's 13-1, and I believe map 1 was 13-3. So I think over the course of 2 maps, I think Spirit got 4 rounds, which is an unbelievable dismantling of the number 2 ranked team. Not the number 1 ranked team, that would be Na'Vi, but the number 2 ranked team, who is unbelievably skilled. But honestly, they just kind of, I don't know. I mean, Spirit didn't win a map at this event, right? They got 2-0'd by Mongols, they got 2-0'd by Spirit. They got 2-0'd by G2. I think at some point you can say, look, team just didn't show up to the event. Like, they just mentally maybe weren't there, they just weren't hitting shots. You have this happen in the reverse direction. Teams just have like life events. Everyone shows up, everyone carries, they win the event, and it's like, and then everyone kind of like, they go back to their standard, and you're like, what the hell happened? They won this event. It was crazy. Think ENCE at Katowice last year, right? I don't know. I don't know nearly enough about that run to say if it was anything like that, but you know, you have like that in the reverse. I think you can have an event like this where just everyone kind of just doesn't show up. Everyone's just kind of not doing well. When you saw the interview with Donk, he was like, I don't know what happened, man. It's like, what went wrong? I don't know. Everything. I didn't see the Zontix interview, but someone said it was depressing. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say the sky's falling for Spirit necessarily, but they are, I mean, this was bad. You know, and I think they have their issues personally, but we'll see how they continue going. We'll see how it goes.